The season begins with both Landon and Hope in a comatose state. In an attempt to save them, Alaric seeks out the necromancer, hoping to obtain answers as to why his students won't wake up. However, he soon discovers that Landon is refusing to wake up as a way of keeping the necromancer from obtaining dark magic. When asked about Hope, the necromancer reveals that he has no involvement in Hope's magical coma. Once Landon discovers that the only way for Hope to wake up is if he returns to his body, he does so immediately, and soon after the couple is reunited. Later on at the school, as Alyssa and Chad speak about their future, Chad begins to vomit up blood, dying moments after. Terrified that she would meet the same fate, she decides to confront the necromancer, only to be assured that if she agrees to be his eternal acolyte, she will survive. Soon after, Raphael also begins vomiting poison, and although everyone works to find a solution, he quickly realizes that he is about to meet the same fate. Accepting his encroaching mortality, he searches for his father to say his final goodbyes, though he is disappointed when he can't find him. However, things perk up when Hope tells them of her plan to use the trident to transfer energy instead of consciousness. Only thing is, for the plan to work, they would need to use Phoenix energy, which would entail Landon becoming a human. When trying to put the plan in motion, they quickly discover that there is no Phoenix energy left to transfer, meaning after his most recent resurrection, Landon became human. However, as a supernova is forecasted to pass over Mystic Falls, Hope uses the Ascendant to create a world where Raphael can live the rest of his days united with his parents. As all of this occurs, we discover the necromancer's plan to raise and control Malivore and all the monsters within it with the intention of ruling the world. For the necromancer to complete his plan, he would need the blood of a witch, a vampire, and a werewolf. He obtains the witch's blood from Alyssa, the werewolf blood from Raphael, and the vampire blood from MG, who he kidnapped to serve as the final piece of his spell. This proves incredibly fatal for MG, considering he is brought closer to death every time a monster is raised from Malivore. As the necromancer brings his plan to life by raising monster after monster, it isn't long until he raises Malivore himself. As Landon comes face to face with Malivore, he is able to convince him to create a plan that takes out the necromancer, freeing Malivore from his control. Working together, they are able to successfully trap the necromancer, ending up in a prison world in the process. Though after successfully escaping, they celebrate by making love, a perfect moment that immediately takes a turn for the worse once Landon disintegrates into a puddle shortly after. Once they discovered what happened, Alaric and the rest of the Super Squad devoted all their resources to finding Landon. Hope decided to use the therapy box as a way to help deal with her emotions and obtain further insight about what could have happened, while Alaric continued to look for magical items. After entering the therapy box, Hope awakens in a slasher simulation where she slowly watches all her friends die whilst trying to find Landon. After finally coming head to head with the killer, it is revealed that the killer is Landon, and he explains to her that deep down she knows that Landon is dead. Later on, Once Alaric finds the artifact that will help them find Landon, Hope is disappointed that it leads to another dead end, slowly coming to terms with the fact that she may never see Landon again. However, there is still hope as we see Landon trapped in a world of darkness, working to find his way towards the light. Back at the Salvatore School, most of the students decided to forego another year after being put through one too many dangerous situations. To keep the school afloat, they need a minimum of 30 new students. So together, everyone worked to convince the new recruits why they should enroll. After touring the school and connecting with its students, Cleo and Gabby are excited to join. Meanwhile, back in Malivore, Landon works to find his way back home. Along the way, he stumbles across the necromancer, who is trapped in an ice cream parlor, forced to work in his own personal hell. He convinces Landon to free him, suggesting they work together to escape. However, once they find the door, Landon knocks out the necromancer, successfully breaking free. He leaves Malivore and enters the prison world, set on finding his way back home. Determined to do whatever he must, he declares that he can no longer wait to be saved. Things seem to look up once Hope discovers that the ascendant they thought to be destroyed was actually being kept hidden by MG. He doesn't want to risk any more monsters escaping the prison world unless they have concrete proof that Landon is alive. To find her evidence, Hope teams up with Lizzie, and together they astral project into the prison world. They find a letter written by Landon explaining that he is in fact alive and working to find his way back home. Believing that she has enough evidence, Hope formulates a plan to activate the Ascendant. But as Lizzie and Hope begin the spell, they experience incredible pain stemming from the dark magic left over by the necromancer. As Josie joins in to help absorb the dark magic, they are suddenly thrown back and quickly discover that the Ascendant was smashed and the spell disrupted by none other than Landon himself. Happy to be reunited, Landon and Hope spend the rest of the night together, reminiscing on what was happening the last time they were together and soaking this special moment in. Although MG is incredibly happy about Landon's return, after being ostracized and dismissed by his fellow classmates, he decided that the Salvatore School was no longer the place for him. With that, he joins Josie, who decided to attend Mystic Falls High earlier that year and live a life without magic in attempts to heal from the traumatic events of last year. Back at the Salvatore School, the gang works to develop a plan to close the portal and keep the monsters from escaping. However, before they can put their plan into action, they discover that the gremlin has already emerged. Meanwhile, back in Mystic Falls, things take a turn for the worse once Ethan discovers that MG is a vampire. As they try to use compulsion to make him forget, they discover that Ethan has been unknowingly taking Vervain. While waiting for the Vervain to leave his system, MG and Ethan begin to bond. Ethan, understanding he must lose his memories, asks if MG can allow him to keep the memories of them becoming friends. A settlement MG agrees with. While Lizzie and Hope are discussing their plans to capture the gremlin, they are surprised to find that it has kidnapped Cleo. They discover Cleo stranded in a well, guarded by a gremlin who has grown the size of a giant. But after finding out that respect is the gremlin's weakness, the girls reconcile and make amends, resulting in them defeating a weakened gremlin. In Mystic Falls High, MG and Ethan are out fighting crime as superheroes while Josie is trying to navigate things with her newest crush, Finch. Meanwhile, at the Saboteur School, as Hope works to discover why monsters are only attacking Cleo, they are attacked by a banshee. After trapping it, she reveals that she was sent by Malivore to capture Cleo. She also tells them that Cleo's presence at the school will lead to Landon's death. Back in Mystic Falls, after Fitch denies Josie's request for a date, she decides, with some convincing, to use magic to see if Fitch is seeing someone else. This leads Lizzie to discover that Finch is a werewolf. As Lizzie tries to escape Finch, she is saved by MG and Ethan. At the Saboteur School, after Alaric tells the Banshee what happened to her son, she is set free. And in her final moments, she reveals that the reason Malivore wants to capture Chloe is because she's a muse. After spending some time together, Hope begins to grow suspicious of Landon. And after noticing certain things, such as Landon lifting extremely heavy weights or eating foods he's allergic to, Hope is completely convinced that Landon is an imposter. Meanwhile, Josie and Alaric team up to find the location of the necromancer, which leads them to a beautiful home in Mystic Falls. There they find the necromancer as someone they aren't familiar with. He goes by the name of Ted and has no recollection of anything supernatural. But after forcing him, Ted successfully raises Leonardo da Vinci from the dead, someone who Alaric believes has the answers about the artifact. Meanwhile, as Hope and Cleo run tests on Landon, it is quickly discovered that Landon is actually a golem created by Cleo. When Cleo runs to ask for help, she stumbles across Leonardo, who reveals Cleo to be his former muse. And in that moment, something within her changes. She attempts to kill Hope in hopes of activating her vampire side and making her a complete tribrid, thus the only being on Earth with the power to defeat Malivore. However, before Cleo can succeed, Hope is rescued by a masked figure who's been watching over them this entire time. And when he removes his mask, he reveals himself to be the true Landon. Things are different in the Salvatore School. Cleo is locked away as Alaric decides how to deal with her, and Landon seems different from how Hope remembers him. When Caleb discovers that Alaric plans to put Cleo into the artifact, he sets out to prove her innocence. Through her memories, he discovers that because she is a muse and a very powerful witch, she was taken as a child by Malivore. As Malivore's prisoner, she was forced to use her magic for him. Eventually, she successfully creates him a body. However, it comes with a catch. When she traps his body with a spell and runs away, Malivore pledges to hunt Cleo down for all eternity. While Caleb and Josie are given insight to Cleo's past, Hope and Landon are on their own adventure. As they spend more time together, Hope sees how different Landon has become. And after much deliberation, Landon states that because he is the son of Malivore and Hope's the key to his demise, they exist to destroy each other, and thus they must stay apart. With that, he breaks up with her, deciding to leave the school with Cleo. Together, they team up and leave Mystic Falls, heading on a journey to destroy Malivore. Their first stop is a museum that they break into, where they steal artifacts that can help them defeat Malivore. Together, they create a plan to use the artifact to create a prison world to trap Malivore in and destroy. Meanwhile, as time goes on, Hope slowly begins to accept what Cleo has stated, that for her to defeat Malivore, she must unlock her vampire side and become the true tribrid. After crossing paths with Ryan Clark, though suspicious at first, she decided to team up with him after he suggested that the return of monsters might be due to another Malivore portal. So together they head off to try and track down and close the portal. Back at the hotel, Cleo and Landon are frustrated by the lack of progress they are making. Cleo's spell didn't work, and she and Landon barely trust each other. After using her powers as a muse to try and inspire Landon, they are interrupted by Hope and Clark. This understandably leads to a lot of tension, which leaves Ryan and Landon alone to talk as Cleo follows Hope in attempts to explain what's going on. Whilst left alone, Ryan immediately becomes suspicious of Landon once he makes a comment about information that he'd only told Hope. This leads him to believe that Landon isn't in fact who he says he is, and once he realizes that, Landon immediately slits his throat. Although Cleo tries to explain that there is nothing going on between her and Landon, Hope isn't convinced, and the two part ways. Hope finds Clark bleeding out on the floor with his throat slit, and Cleo runs into an irritated Landon, who in anger and frustration devours her after she refuses to leave with him. Luckily enough, Alaric was present to see the whole thing and successfully sedates who we discover to be Malivore as Hope arrives. When Clark awakens in Mystic Fall Hospital, he tells Hope that Malivore is planning something big, and as Hope and her friends confront Malivore, demanding that he releases their friends, he states that there is something they must do for him first. Hello guys, I am Bubblegum Zombie Hunters, and I really hope that you enjoyed this recap of Legacies Season 3. If you like this recap, comment below telling me your favorite part, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. See you in the next one.